Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a subscriber who is going to share some of his encounters in the great state of Maine. Now, if you're not familiar with Maine, it's not just ocean. There is some very dense forest and beautiful land up there. Definitely area for these creatures to thrive and live. Before we get into that interview, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook version. Written by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny, are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. The links to those books are in the description as well. Now I've taken enough of your time. Let's get in today's upload. Shall we? Alright, today, people, I have a subscriber who is from Maine. His name is Matt, and he has some first-hand experience that he wants to share with us. He also has some experience from friends that he's spoken with over the years, because he's been into cryptozoology for a while now, and being from the state of Maine, which is just densely full of woods, that you've definitely got some stories to share with us. So, Matt, how are you?
I'm good.
I'm glad that you. I'm good. I'm glad that you took some time out of your day to share with us. And I'm going to give you the floor, and you go from there, my friend.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I'm Matt. I'm from Maine, Mid Coast Maine area. I never really thought that I'd be on one of these shows, talking about this, but I here I am today, sharing my situations and what happened to me. All right, so I'll say it like this, that I was, as a child, I was always out in the woods. I loved hunting, fishing, and trapping. That's part of our life and my heritage, growing up. So I would say, like, one of my first experiences of something that I look back, now that I think, as an adult and knowing that these things are real, we were out, about 5 of us were out there. We were going to set some raccoon traps. I was 10 years old, I believe, at that time. And we had set them up. And while we were going out in the woods, I had opened my traps up, set them on the ground, and I heard this, what I thought, because we normally have a lot of tourists that will come here during times, during the summer times in my area, because it's a big tourist destination. And I couldn't understand why they were out in the woods, but I heard this weird whistling sound, and what I thought was like a weird songbird, and then like weird talking. It was like a chattery talk, and I just thought at first that it was somebody, talking like Asian or something. I couldn't, as a kid, I didn't know all that stuff like that when I was younger. And this big rock come flying, a good little, it was about the size of one of those little duck pin bowling balls, come flying at this tree right next to us and smacked. And we got all scared and ran, and we couldn't figure out, we ran home, all of us kids, trying to figure out who was out there, what was that, you don't think of it being like Bigfoot or anything else like that. So, they were on the West Coast. You never thought of anything like that. And, we were kids. We didn't really know much about that back then either. So I never really understood what that was at that time. And down the line, I would go out there on these trails and stuff, and I would always find, like, in this one spot that I was at, I'd find, like, these knives or whatever, and just always in this one spot. And I couldn't never figure it out. And now that I look back, I'm like, man, is this the same things that I saw as an adult? Were they in this area and like leaving these things for me? Like I don't know. I can't say it at that time, but it just seems like it all adds up like that. So I'll get to my first encounter. at the age of 17, I had left the state of Maine, and then I had moved down to Tennessee, and I was living down there for a while. So I came home, and I believe it was 2000. We were driving back in January, and back from Tennessee up to Maine, and we were coming down through the roadway. It was in winter. There had been a big snowfall here, and I had my friend Andy with me. And we were on the old coaster route, the Augusta Road. We took the back way coming into, the back side of Waldoboro area. And on the double side, there's like lanes, the roads here, the highway roads, there's 3 lanes, and you can't see the other side where the oncoming traffic is. It's like all woods and high hilltops on the side. So as we came around the bend, I had a 1997 Ford Thunderbird, and it was pearl white. And the snow, it blended. It was a super quiet car, and it blended right in with the snow. I mean, perfectly. You would never even see it. It was perfect camouflage. That's the only reason I think that we've seen it. So down the way, we came around the bend, and I say a couple hundred yards maybe down the way on the straightaway, up on the right side of the hill, I saw, because the snow, when it gets heavy, it drops. So I didn't think anything of it at first. And there was huge pine trees there. And as I'm slowing down, because I seen something big and brown come out from the tree underneath these overhanging trees. I said, first thing I thought, I said, Andy, look, there's a moose, because he's never seen any. He's from Tennessee. And I'm slowing down as we're coming down, and this thing walked out from this tree, which I thought was at first the tree. I guess it wasn't. It was, and then a moose, and it was a Bigfoot. This thing was massive. I cannot express how huge this thing. It started walking down the slope line, and as it was walking down the slope line, we're slowing down, and we both come to the meeting point in the middle of the road, and it's just sitting there, hunched down in the middle of the road. I'm like not even 35 maybe yards from it, and we're just looking at it. It's looking at us, and it turns around. And it just takes 3 big strides, and it's like halfway back. I crossed the middle of the lanes all the way back to the way it came. It was halfway up the hill. It hunched down, looked at us, and then it turned and it walked a couple strides and stood at the base where the tree it was at, looked at us, and then just blended back into the forest as it walked back in there. And that was my first encounter.
Now, is this the one that when you and I had talked prior, was that the one that you said was as big as a bull moose?
Yeah.
Okay.
This thing, that's what I thought. At first, I thought it was a bull moose, because the bull moose up here, the full-grown adult bull moose are huge.
Right.
And that's exactly when it came out from that trees, because these pines, and if anybody's from the Maine area, they'll know that, on the coastal road, when you take it down, you'll see up on the upper ledges, because they slope, the hillsides slope up, and then it goes to the woods where the 3-lane highways are, and the pines that are there, massive, there's huge pines there, and that's what I thought it was. I thought it was, and this thing was at least 9-10 feet tall. Because I used to work with pipe. I measured and weight my entire life. Being a pipe fitter, and yeah, it was easily 9-10 feet tall, at least 900 to 1,000 pounds, at least. I could be underestimating on the weight of this thing. I've never seen. You've seen grizzly bears, moose and stuff, but I've never seen something built like this. And its legs were like telephone poles, man. Like the thickness just in its legs, it was just massive. Yeah. Not long as telephone poles, but it's thick.
Right.
This thing's just huge.
Yeah.
There was not a doubt in my mind that this thing could not, with ease, have ripped my car door off. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, why didn't you hit it? You'd be rich. If you'd have hit this thing, and this is no joke, with that car, I doubt, I'd have been going a couple, 100 miles an hour, and it would have just destroyed my car, and I don't even know if that would have killed this thing. This thing was huge. I cannot express the size of this creature. It had it was built, like a wrestler, but just solid muscle. Didn't have a 6-pack or anything. It had like a barrel solar plexus, like almost like gorillas do. You know what I mean? Like they have that half barrel look, but his like chest was just every bit of him just rippled muscle, like all muscle, man. Just there was nothing that it didn't even look like you could pinch, an ounce of fat off of this thing, and which is just crazy because like they must have a huge appetite. They really do, because there's just no way this thing. I don't know, man. It just blows my mind that like this is out here and people, I know others have seen them. People are scared to talk about it more coming forward now. But he was, it was quite a sight.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And that was when you were 17, and then you moved on?
No, I was in my 20s.
Okay.
I was in 2000. I moved when I was 17 to Tennessee. I had gotten married there, and I had lived there for a few years. I had lived there for like 11 years, and I was coming home for just after Christmas. I had gotten some vacation time, so I wanted to come home and see my family for a week.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that was that was in the year 2000 that had happened.
Okay. All right. And then when was your next encounter?
Our next encounter, my next encounter was, let me think here, my nephew and I were out hunting coyotes in the area in Warren, and it was at these gravel pits. We were doing night hunting. I used to do a lot of trapping, hunting, fishing, stuff like that. I'd gotten a fox pro collar, and we wanted to go out because I had noticed that my hunting area was just like, used to be really filled with deer and game, and that year it was just like everything was just decimated, man, decimated, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. So obviously we were like, all right, well, it's got to be the coyote, because nobody saw deer there, and it was uncommon for people not to get deer there. So we went and we set up out there, and I had set my game call up, and it was during the winter time, right after a couple months after deer season, right about now actually, this time of year, and we set it up, and so I let off my coyote hot call, and then I let off of it's called a location call. Did that, didn't get no response, so I just hit the rabbit squirrel with a snowshoe hare in distress, and we're sitting there, and that night, the weirdest thing about it is like that night, it really, really, really felt the air. It was almost like the air was just electric. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
It didn't feel right. Everything just really felt just real energetic, which was just really odd, especially for that time of like almost after a thunderstorm or something, but like that time of year is just weird. And next thing we're in the gravel pit. We're sitting up in my truck because I won't go out in the woods alone anymore after seeing what I saw the first time like that. I won't go in after dark. I won't stay after dark. I won't go in before daylight. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't do it. I can't do it anymore. And I used to live up. I used to run hounds, be out there all night long, do all that kind of stuff. Sorry, I'm trying to jump around here.
No, that's all right.
So we hit that call, and the next thing you know, we're sitting there and we're talking or whatever. My nephew, he was 12 years old at the time, 12, yeah. And we were just looking at each other. He's like, I want to go get in. And this roaring howl came out that was from behind the tree that was just, you could literally feel it echoing through your chest in the vehicle, because we were sitting in my truck up above, ready to take the shot down below where the decoy and the collar was. And he looked at me and he was like, what is that, Uncle Ben? And I was like, I think you know what that is, And then I up above me, I'd say about 1,000 yards up above us where there's these cave areas too. This other one let out, like, and I gotta say, this roar that thing had let out was just like, it was like a howl, but a roar too, like, I can't even do it without shaming it. And then up above us, all of a sudden you heard this, it's screaming, and you could hear, like, and this thing was far. I knew exactly where it was, up on the mountainside up there. And next one, it let out another roaring howl, and then that thing did it again, and you could literally hear that thing as it was sounding off, coming down, coming through the woods, and just crashing like it was like a freight train coming through there. Excuse me. My nephew, he's freaking out. He's like, basically like crying, turns white as a ghost. He's like, I want to go. I'm not going to get the collar. I want to go home. So I had to jog down and I grabbed the collar. Now this thing wasn't, not even like maybe a couple hundred yards from us behind this tree line where this thing was, and it didn't appear to us. And I wanted to stay. I wanted to drive around because it's a gravel pit, huge logging and gravel pit area that has like logging roads all through it where this happened. And I wanted to go down and come around and see it, but he didn't. And I was like, I really wanted to. And so we ended up leaving that night. He didn't want to stay. So I mean, what are you telling us? That's petrified. Like that encounter earlier. And I was like, a few years back, and that just sealed it for him after that. When we seen that, what happened to us there. So, it was pretty intense time. And that's the thing is earlier that summer when we had been in there, there's a trout river that runs not far from there, like literally right down the road in the area. And I mean, I'm an ex-trapper, and I'm an AGC trapper, wildlife control trapper. I love it, live it. I can track animals, anything, I had come across these footprints that were dog. They went dog, and they looked like wolf footprints, and that's why I'm like, I don't know what those two were, because we didn't stick around long enough. We come out of there, but like literally right in that area were these prints, and I have pictures of them on one of my old phones, but it's broken, and I got to be able to pull them off. These footprints, and I know Mastiff, I know Great Danes, I know all the largest dogs that there are, These things, to course, their footprints, they look like, have you ever seen not the large dinner plate, but the smaller dinner plate?
Yep.
The medium? They were literally that size. Like, and I'm not talking the ones that you set your coffee on. I'm talking those, you have the coffee saucers, go the next step up.
Right.
That's how big these things were, and they were deep in this muddy area there. And I just that blew me. That threw me for a loop, man. I'm like, what the hell made this thing? Where is this thing? What is this thing? So, and that was in that area.
It's definitely crazy.
It is. It is, and it just blows my mind. So I'll go on to our next encounter then. All right, so you wouldn't think that lightning strikes in the same place twice. That's 2 times that I've had these weird encounters and sightings with people, and they're thinking, okay, well now I know what's going on with our deer spot or whatever. Now there's power lines that connect these areas right here. They all connect, and I honestly believe whatever these things are, they're using these power lines as game trails. It has to be. It led to another gravel pit that I go blueberry raking and picking with my little girl, and I've done it with her, and we save them for the year, and we like to freeze them for the winter time here. We have blueberry fields out there. I went down there to go check on the blueberries and the blackberries, and this was, let's say, 5 years ago, right around that time, 4 or 5 years ago. That was with Brandon. So yeah, about 3 or 4 years ago, I'd say I'm not working on my days on that, but we went down there. So I went down to go check on them, and I got in there, and I looked, and it was right before dark, And I walked in, and I pulled into the gravel pit, and I looked there, and there was these huge, like, footprints and handprints, and you could tell where, like, it was a Bigfoot, man. Like, it'd been sitting there, and it'd been eating a blueberry. So I got in my car, and I went back to Walmart, and I grabbed some casting material, and I got my friend Nick, because we had seen these footprints prior in the snow and the other area, and I got photographs of them. They were just massive. And I told him, I was like, hey, man, you know, the Bigfoot's been down at the gravel pit to eat the blueberries. And we drove down there, and he's like, no, I got down there, and he's like, oh, my God, you know, so we're sitting there, and it's just after dark. You know, he's holding a flashlight, and all of a sudden, it's like we're at the bottom of the gravel pit, and it's higher up above us, and that's where the blueberry field is, right up above us. And you can feel, like, vibration, like, just thump, thump, thump. And I'm like, Nick, do you hear that? Do you feel that? And he stops. He's like, what is that? I was like, is that a deer? And I was like, shine a light up there. Is that a deer? And all of a sudden, just as I said that, you could hear it, thump, thump. And this basketball, like, this thing was the size of a basketball, comes flying over us, like, right over us, on the side of us, like, we're looking at it, like, and it hits this tree, this huge pine tree up above us on the right, and it was like, have you ever seen those ping pong game balls where it's just like, it hits one branch, and then it goes down, and it goes to the other, and then it goes down, and it's just like tick-tock, going down, and like, it freaked us out, man. There's no way somebody could have thrown that thing like that. It pitched it like it was a baseball, you know, this whoosh. And we ended up getting up out of there and getting out of there. I dropped the casting material and all that. Ended up leaving. We did. We come back the next morning. Got my tracks, my cast, my arm print of where it had leaned there. And that was our third encounter.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty insanity.
Yeah. So then, when you've had how many Bigfoot encounters?
We've had after this. What was it last fall? My daughter and I, and these are all in the same area. My daughter and I were driving down on the Kastner Road. It's called the Kastner Road in Walterboro, which is connects down by that gravel pit.
Okay.
We saw one which was at the base of the field. It was at the beginning of the wood line, the field that was standing there. And it wasn't as big as the other ones. It was smaller. I'd say about 5 foot. It was jet black. At first I thought it was a black bear. And I pulled over to the side and I was like, look, Liberty, there's a bear. And then it stood up. And when it stood up, it started doing like this rocket, like, you know, like almost like a tick-tock clock. You know how it goes side to side, but it goes slow?
Right.
I was looking at that, and it was just standing there, and then it crouched down, and it looked at us, and I was like, that's not the bear. She's like, Daddy, look at the Bigfoot. And I was like, it is. You know, it is a Bigfoot. It was about 5 foot. It was black color. We sat there watching it for a few minutes, like 15 minutes, and then it turned, and it walked back in, and it looked back, and then it just kept going. And I told her, I was like, she's like, because I have shit cuts. And I was like, don't go telling Mom that. You know what I mean? Because,
yeah.
You know, like, hey, people don't accept, you know what I mean? Like, I just saw Bigfoot with Daddy, you know, like, and, you know, I'm like, yeah, okay. You know, yeah. What do you do, man? You know, I mean, you can't tell your kids to lie, and then the next week you tell them, well, don't say anything, you know, like, but, you know,
it sounds like, just from what you're saying, you know, in this same general location, it sounds like there's a small pod of them living there. I mean, they've obviously got everything they need. They've got some shelter. They've got plenty of food. They've got water. You know, so, I mean, It seems like they've got a little pod of, you know, how maybe less than 10, more than 5.
Right. I think it's a family group, I honestly believe, because we've been out at night, you know, and we've heard knocks, and then we'll hear another knock in areas that nobody's supposed to be in. You know, like years ago, like I don't go out I refuse to in the woods, especially if I'm alone. But years back, we were like, what is, I'm not going to say, I'll give the reason why, like back in the day, marijuana stuff used to not be legal here. You know what I mean? It is now, so people used to grow it back, and you'd go out there and you'd be making sure that your stuff was taken care of or whatever. And then you hear somebody not, and you're like, what is that? Why is somebody out? You know what I mean? Nobody should be way out here, So that's one of the reasons. And there's a lot of things on that we could talk about. But yeah, I believe 100% that there's a family group out here. I really do. Especially from what others have said and seen in this area, and people have done and heard. And we have our message boards that are on Facebook, and every year during the springtime, right around March through May, they'll go the area that I'm speaking of. They'll go up and down the fieldways and the roadways, and people will be on there saying, "I saw the thing again," or "It's out here howling," because it sits there and they'll sit there and scream. I honestly think that they have a breeding season, and I think it's them. I really do. I think that's their main season, because my sister used to live down there, and she would hear them, and she would call me up and be like, "They're out here screaming again," and it's like clockwork. Every spring, you'll hear them right at the beginning of spring. They'll be out there roaring and howling, and it's people around here seeing them. They've all heard them. It's not like, I'm glad that now we have like social media and groups like yours, and stuff like that to be able to, share these, because the more people that put this stuff out, the more that people are realizing, like, hey, I had this happen to me, or, they don't feel ashamed or belittled, because that's the big thing. People feel that way, and they don't want to be known as, crazy or laughed at. I don't care. Right. I'm an honest person, I look at what I've seen out there, because I worry about people, I'm not saying that they've ever done anything other than throw a rock or roar at us, but I wouldn't want my kid out there, or somebody else is out there, or somebody, because people have come up missing around here a lot, and there's reasons for this. I don't think they're all bad. I don't think they're all good, but you may run into one that somebody just shot at me or shot at it just a mile down the road, and it may not be a good encounter.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're an animal, but they've got intelligence, like Absolutely. We have intelligence. So obviously they have, there's good ones, bad ones, and they obviously can have good days or bad days, like you just said. And I appreciate you saying that, because, who's to say that you're out there and you spot one, you don't know if couple days ago it got shot at, or like you said, its mate got shot, or it's young. You don't know. Right. So yeah, I appreciate that. So
I just honestly think it's if you're not prepared for it, and even if you are prepared for it, really going out and messing with them, or isn't a really good idea. I mean, go get whatever you want to do, but use common sense and caution,
Yep.
Use common sense and caution, because, as I said, like, these things are powerful. Like, and it kind of bugs me, too, because I'll see these people post, on these Bigfoot forums or whatever, and I never really used to go on there, but then I got tired of it when I would see them post or whatever, and I'd see it, and they'd be like, "Oh, if you look here, there's a Bigfoot in this picture," or whatever. No, you'll know if you see one, because you'll never forget it, and they're not all massive or whatever. I think, I know, because the juveniles are small. They're smaller. They're juvenile. Their kid ones are like the size of an adult male. It's the adult that is a really massive one. The full-grown ones are just huge, and it's something you will never forget. And that one that we've seen, my daughter and I've seen, and I forgot to add this, when it was like doing something weird with its arms too, like it was like playing its arms, like kind of like walking around, like it acted like a kid, like how like you'll walk around and like how can I explain it? Like it would kick its arms up, like almost like it was a little not flapping big, making big flapping, that's just a like
Oh,
that's
yeah,
what they're
yeah, obviously, yeah.
doing.
Now, you've had, I don't know where you want to go on this, but you've had a couple of Dogman encounters. I mean, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that or if you want to get into what your friends have told you.
Yeah. See, and that's my Dogman encounter was, I think, I don't know if that's where we've seen those footprints, and I can't say if that what we saw was a Bigfoot, that one that roared at my nephew and I. So I don't know. I didn't think it was sitting behind the tree line right there at us when we got scared and we left. So I don't know. I don't know which one that was, but I'll tell about after I'd had my sightings and stuff and word had gotten around. I had a friend of ours, and he was hitchhiking when he come to me like, man, I heard you seen something. And I was like, yeah. He's like, man, I want to tell you what happened. So he's a carpenter, and he's well known from this area. I drop his name. I'm sure if anybody around this area is listening to know exactly what I'm talking about. He said, he's like, man, I was hitchhiking down by the apple farm, and this is on the backside of Waldoboro, and there's an apple farm up there, and it leads down to a road that goes this huge swamp up there, and there's a culvert under the road. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm hitchhiking back from the park. I was like, yeah. He's like, so I'm getting at the bottom, midway to the hill, and the moon's behind me. And he's like, all of a sudden I hear this roaring howl. And I'm like, no kidding. He's like, yeah. He's like, this roaring howl. And he's like, man, it scared me to death. And I was like, well, what happened? He's like, as I was sitting there looking back from where this howl is, he's like, out walked this werewolf. He's like, I could see him in the moonlight. It was really lit up. He's like, up above me was a werewolf. He's like, and it roared and it howled. And I was like, what did you do, man? He's like, I ran down to the bottom of the hill, and this thing was like following me. And he said I don't know if I can say this on whatever. I said, Joel, what did you do? He said, I shit my pants. So I was like, what? He's like, he defecated and urinated. Like, I was like, you're kidding me. He's like, man, it scared me so bad, I literally, lost my bowels. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, well, so what happened? He said that he went inside the culvert and he got in the water and he laid in the water, and this thing was walking above him back and forth, roaring, howling, making these weird noises. And I was like, well, what happened? What happened? He's like, man, I stayed in that culvert all night long with this thing walking around me. He's like, and then, it finally ended up leaving, and I was so scared that I didn't even leave till it was daylight. And I believe it. I mean, this guy's a known, BS, well-respected carpenter of this area. So he told me that there was another sighting that a friend of mine just recently had told me. This was 2 winters ago, because I had put on Facebook and stuff, a couple of things that I was seeing, and she's like, she messaged me on Facebook, and she's like, I want to tell you something. I was like, what? Like, I saw something, and this is our area too. She says, my husband has a minivan. I said, yeah. She said, it's his work van. It's bigger than the small regular minivans. It's one of the minier work vans. She's like, Matt, 3 o'clock in the morning, I couldn't sleep. It didn't feel right. She lives up in Rockport, up on the mountain there. And she's like, so I kept looking out my windows. I don't know why. She said that when she looked out her window, she's like, there was a wolf out there. And I was like, you mean a coyote, or a coy dog? She's like, no, it was a wolf. I was like, how do you know this? She's like, nah, it was standing next to my husband's minivan, looking up at me through my window. I was like, yeah? And she was like, nah, it was big as my husband's minivan. She said the thing was like the size of a cow. So that's not normal.
No.
And the last one that I had somebody tell about, we just gotten out from going to get something to eat, and there was a group of us, and there was a girl in the group. And we had gone just a couple of years back, we had gotten talking about somebody had mentioned something about Bigfoot, and then, people laughing or whatever like that. And I was like, yeah, I saw one. So she was sitting there talking to us, and she said to me and my friend Courtney, like, I want to tell you something that happened to me in Warren area, same area where this other stuff is all taking place. It's Warren and Waldoboro area. She's like, we were driving home, my mother and I, and we were coming around a corner, and she was like, there was a werewolf standing in the field right by the road looking at us. And, I was like, I kind of feel bad because this is like before Joel had told me his story, well, his encounter. I hate calling them stories, man, because it's people encounters,
Right.
I felt bad for this. I kind of chuckled at it. I was like, well, I've seen Bigfoot. I'm not going to say werewolves aren't real, but I've not seen a werewolf, like that. And she was like, she explained to me how her mom is scared her to death, and she had people laugh at her stuff. She said that they had come around the corner and there was a werewolf standing right there looking at her. And I was like, well, are you sure it was a werewolf? She's like, it was standing up on two legs. It had the long claws, it was gray in color, like a grayish blue, and it was a werewolf looking at us. And she's like, I told her, real. She said it was massive too. So, and that's not, there's been other people around these areas that have seen these things. So this area, like, it's just weird. You wouldn't, it's hard to even fathom that these things are even legit, like somebody on the outside has never seen one or never heard, like you hear people talking about their experiences and you're like, yeah, man, that's cool, or I'd like to see one until you really do see one, like, and then you're like, why are we being lied to? Why is this, how is this even happening? It's like, it blows my mind, but it also just upsets me too because they know that these things are real. Not just the people that experience them, but the law enforcement, game wardens, they all know these things are real.
Yeah.
There's not, and they're not telling people. And what in the hell are they? Why are they here? Why are we being lied to about this?
Absolutely. They just want to keep us in the dark as much as possible. And, I think that's why it's beneficial that more people like yourself and others come out and share, their encounters on top of, being able to get it off your chest and then have a comment section where, you've got great people to communicate with. But then more encounters come out, we can kind of figure things out and geographically look at where these encounters took place and, try to figure out what the heck is going on.
Exactly. And that's the other thing about it is, you think that, and I've asked this question myself, and I'm so happy that it wasn't just me when all these things happened. I had one witness or multiple witnesses with me that weren't believers either. You know what I mean? When these events took place. So it's like, hey, he says these things. Well, I saw one do it. You know what I mean? Like, and you would never think that it happens. But I guess if you're in an area and you're out in the woods all the time, you're going to have more chances of seeing it, especially if you're in an area that they're known to be in or they're traveling to. And they do. They chase the season with the animals, whether it's the fish or the deer or what have you. There's not a doubt in my mind. And I honestly 100% know that they travel these power lines. So
yep.
That's a good place to look for them.
Yeah, it's a perfect, pole lines and, riverways, waterways is just a perfect area because they can travel and still feel safe because they have some woods, where they can just run into very quickly or at least somewhere to hide,
That's it. They can just disappear or whatever. And that's the same thing about here. Like, where our area, like, it's basically, it's definitely filled up with people in the last 20 years. So that's probably another reason why we're seeing more of this. Like, we used to be little cookie cutter villages pretty much around this area. Now people are everywhere. So
Yep.
They ain't got much room to hide, Like, and I think that's another reason why we're seeing so many is because they're being pushed out and there's more roadways. But then there is a lot of, forest in Maine. There's a lot. And that's the other thing I always think about. If we're seeing them here, so frequently, and that's because, and there's, you hear sightings all over, like even Ellsworth, Bangor, all over the place. Like there's been multiple sightings everywhere you hear people talking about seeing these things. There's got to be more than just one of these, There's got to be more than just this little group that's over here. There's sightings all over, So that right there tells you that just in this state alone, there's a good little population of each one of these types of creatures.
Absolutely. Yeah, most definitely they are. So
I probably left out some of mine. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, I was going to ask if you had any more, and then.
No, but basically I'm trying to remember if I've left anything out, or I'll probably get off here and be like, I forgot about telling that, or whatever, but that's it, And I've gotten, pictures and all that, cast prints of my encounters after they've happened, or before, when I went to the blueberry field to get that, and got footprint pictures and some amazing stuff from this. And
I'd love for you to send me a couple of pictures of the cast if you could.
Absolutely.
I'd appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
I've got I got that. Right where at the blueberry field, because the gravel pits slope up, and then you have the blueberry fields up on the top. It's like gravel pits just carved right out of the landscape there. And you can literally see where it was walking, and it laid at an angle on the gravel pit side, and was sitting there, and they ate all the overhanging berries, like they were just gone, and you could see where all the other berries were. And I got a perfect arm, and you could see the hair coming off of it, and the fingerprints where it had put its fingers in the dirt, the whole paw. It was pretty amazing. I never thought I'd find something like that, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, most definitely is. Now, really quick before when you were talking about the print that you thought was a Dogman print, and you compared it to kind of like a plate.
Absolutely.
Now, would you say about 6 inches around, somewhere around there?
All right. If you were to take your hand, and I know bear prints, man. These are not, I know every North American footprint and bear print, wolves, coyotes, man, I love it. I know my game when it comes to tracking animals and tracks and their habitat, and what they eat. I know everything about them, and anybody can quiz me, and I guarantee I'm on my game on that, and I'm proud of it. I would say at least, holding my finger right now outward on the plate, that plate was at least 10, I would say about 10 inches, maybe, I'd say about 9.5, 10 inches wide, and at least that. So I'd say it was just almost like at least on the outside toe to outside toe, if you were to take your hand and then stretch out your thumb to your pinky, stretch them out the opposite way, at least 9.5 inches wide, if not 10. These were huge, man.
Yeah, that's a large size print.
I've never seen anything like it. That's what, and it just, and my nephew was with me, because it was that summer in fall there that we had come across them a couple of times before, because we had gone trout fishing, and it was getting towards the end of the season, and then we went to our deer hunting spot, and it was just decimated. You couldn't even see a squirrel out there. And this place was rich with game, man, full of game.
Right.
Everybody always pulled deer out of there. Everybody always pulled rabbits and everything. You know what I mean? And it was a ghost town, and it just had a weird feeling about. Now I know why. You know what I mean? And we came across those prints because the trout was on where we had that roaring and that howl thing happen to us. The trout stream where I saw those prints are on the back side of that. I'd say about an eighth of a mile behind it, and I had found prints literally down a couple of thousand yards down from where that sighting was during the fall time too. So I was like, man, what is this thing? Like there was this lady that would once in a while she would go there with her. She used to have a St. Bernard, and she would go through there. I've seen a St. Bernard track, man. You know what I mean? It was nothing like these tracks. These tracks were huge, man. And I mean, like that St. Bernard's track, his track literally was like basically the size of my palm itself. Like that was how big that St. Bernard's track was. This thing dwarfed that track. Like it was just unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. And it was they weren't fake. Like there was nobody that was where we go through. You're walking through the brush. You're coming down, going into like a little creek area where the river is, the Trout River. Nobody's been in there. Right. Nobody.
Right.
So, and I got pictures of those too. If I could just pull them off this phone, I'm more than willing to send all this stuff to you.
Yeah, I'd love to take a look at, and if you could before, after the interview, send me a couple so I can include them in the interview. That way people can see some of the tracks that you're talking about. I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. What it's going to take, it probably has to be by tomorrow, though, because I have to put it on my old cell phone right here.
Okay.
And my port that I have is busted. So I'm trying to figure a way to charge it, because it's an older, so it's one of the older flip phone stuff. I'll take that with me when I go hunting and fishing and stuff, so I didn't damage my phone.
All right.
And that's how I've got to be able to charge that battery and then, like, Bluetooth the photos over. So if I can get this thing fixed with that, absolutely. But I can definitely get you pictures of my print, of the handprint and all the other stuff like that. That I have cast.
Yeah, please do.
Yep.
And what I'll do is, I'll instead of putting anything up tonight with the video, I'll make a community post and share the prints on the community post so people can see it that way. So,
okay. All right. That'll be fun. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to try to get these things off here. Put them all together, make a portfolio or whatever. It's just crazy, I mean, like I said, you don't think these things are out here, and nobody would think that it's ruined it for me. Like, honestly, it has. I used to, be joy-free and go out and spend all day, all night out in the woods ever since I was a kid. And, like I said, I used to run red-bone coonhounds. I used to run trap lines at night when I'd go and check them. I did all that stuff, and I loved it. I didn't think there was, you don't believe any of these things. And then when it happens to you, and you're like, wow, this shit is real. Sorry for the cussing.
No,
and then you're like, you don't think that it would happen again, and then you have these experiences over the last, 20 years here, and you're like, man, it's just totally ruined it. Because, I mean, I'm not going to lie and not say that. I'm not. I'd much rather be out there during the day, because where I can see it, I'm well guarded or whatever, but I just can't bring myself to even go out. There were some days that after all this stuff happened, that I wouldn't even, I'd wake up, get ready, all set up for bow hunting season or gun season, and I'd get right to the door, and sometimes I didn't even make it out the door, or I'd drive right out to where I was supposed to go into the woods, and it'd just still be dark, and I'd look out there, and I'd do it,
Right, yeah, definitely. PTSD, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Well,
but my nephew, he still goes. He's older now. He's older, and he still goes. He put it behind him. I can't. But, yeah.
Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a question real quick. If you ever have the opportunity to talk to the guy that had the encounter, that had to jump in the water, if he's ever willing, to come on and share, I would love to talk with him.
Absolutely.
Or even if he's willing to talk to me, and I can write out the encounter and just narrate it, that'd be great. But I'd really like to have him come on the show and share that experience as well.
Yeah, are we recording right now?
I'm recording.
You might be able to. Yeah, after we get done with that, I'm going to actually give you his name too, so that and see if, because I've been actually, it's my sister's best friend's father.
Okay.
So I've actually been trying to get a hold of him. You know, I wanted to.
Let's finish this up. Why don't you if you got anything else to say to anybody, to the audience, say it, and then we'll end the show, and then I'll get that info from you right after that.
Absolutely. All I got to say is these things are real, and I'm sure you guys heard, other people on here say the same thing. If somebody tells you something, listen to them. Not everybody is, crazy or out here trying to get, recognition or anything. I could care less about any of that. What I want people to know is that, like, we're all being lied to. Every one of us, we're all being lied to, for real. These things are out there. Take caution when you're out there. Always have something, whether, and I'm not promoting guns or anything. I have them. If you have them legally, great. But carry protection if you go for any type of nature walk, anything with your kids. Never let them out of your sight. Don't let them out of your sight. I don't care if it's 20, 30, because these things are fast.
Absolutely.
Fast, and powerful, quick. And just keep guard. Always take that time to make sure that your kids or your family members are in your sight. Be prepared. Be well prepared. You don't have to take it serious, but take it serious enough that this could be out there, because they really are. And I'd hate to see somebody or something happen to somebody, or somebody come up missing or anything like that, when they could have, or they have had somebody come out and tell them, hey, beforehand, do that.
Right.
I wouldn't recommend going chasing them if you do know that they're there or whatever like that. And you want to prove or whatever you got to do what you got to do, but don't piss them off, because you're gonna regret it. And that's it.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and don't hang up, but I'm gonna say goodbye, and it's great having you on. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, guys. Matt's a wicked cool guy. Had a great time talking to him before and after the interview. He's going to reach out to the people that shared the encounters with him to see if they'd like to come on the show and give the first-hand encounters as well. I really think that's going to be pretty cool. Also, he's going to be sending me, when he figures out a way of charging the phone, pictures of the footprints and the casts. And what I'll do is I will make a community post up and share those all in one lump sum with you guys as well. So with that, I'm going to bid you all farewell. I might put an upload out later today or later tonight, something to do with reptilians. If not, that'll be out tomorrow. But with that, have a great one, guys. Thanks for listening.